Every October, thousands of innocent pumpkins are massacred in an attempt to make jack-o'-lanterns. As an amateur pumpkin carver, I'm going to teach you a simple way to make a jack-o'-lantern, starting with choosing the pumpkin all the way to putting in the candle at the last minute. Alright, first off, to choose a pumpkin, you need to decide, is the pumpkin the right size, shape, and whether or not it has too much or too little scarring. Size is pretty obvious. If you want a big face on your pumpkin, get a big pumpkin. But obviously you don't want something too small. At least about this big is what I would recommend, as it's much easier to deal with. Alright, scarring, also pretty straightforward. There's this cut there, kind of a gash. If you have too many of those, it's going to mess up your pumpkin and the face isn't going to look right on your jack-o'-lantern. So just check for a lot of scarring. Now the shape is a bit more odd, because if you have a elongated pumpkin, that won't really mess it up, but a pumpkin that's lopsided on one end, that can mess up the face you're putting on the pumpkin. So just check for that. Alright, now that you have your pumpkin, the next step is to carve out the core. So, beginning with this, you get a thick knife like this one, and you carve a diagonal cut like this, diagonal to the surface of the pumpkin is what I mean. That way, when you've carved around the top in a circle, the cap comes off easily, just like so. Alright, now I've already carved out the core of this pumpkin for the sake of time, but in order to do that, just take a large spoon, scrape around inside until all the guts are taken out, and then you're done. Make sure, of course, it's all uniform and has a nice flat bottom for the candle to rest on later. Alright, so now you've scooped out your core and cut off the cap, you can move on to the third step, which is drawing a face on the pumpkin. I drew a simple face here, but you can be a little more extravagant, unless it's your first pumpkin, in which case I'd start with something simple like this. So just take a Sharpie or a black marker of some kind and draw on the pumpkin. If you mess up, you can simply erase it with a washcloth and some heavy scrubbing. Alright, once you've gotten the design you like, use the same knife and cut straight lines, usually triangles, inside the lines of your drawing. I shaded this drawing in for the sake of the camera. Yours would just be an outline. Alright, so once you've cut these straight lines, you just cut out the eyes and areas, and then cut out whatever's left over at the edges. And a simple way to add some teeth is to cut little triangles at the corners. The reason you cut straight lines instead of curves is because the knife won't be able to bend when it's stuck inside here. It won't be able to curve properly. So you cut straight lines and then snip off whatever's left over at the end. Alright, step, well, more like 3.5. So, after you've drawn and cut, your face should look something like this. Pretty straightforward face there. Alright, which brings me to the last and final step, step 4. Putting in the candle. Now, here's a flat sort of candle. I'd recommend something like this. It's small, easy to deal with. If you're going to use a bigger candle, you're going to need some kind of mechanism to get it in without burning yourself. And also, if it's too tall, it'll tip over inside the pumpkin. So I'd recommend a small flat one like this. It puts off plenty of light. If it's a big pumpkin, you can use 2 or 3 of these quite effectively. And also, as you can see, it doesn't really burn you when you put your hand right over top of it like that. Alright, final thing to check after you've done all that is whether or not your pumpkin lets off a healthy glow. This is a pretty bright room, so you might not see it, but I've already tested this pumpkin, and I can assure you that it glows quite nicely. Alright, now that I've demonstrated the proper way to carve a pumpkin, it is up to you to carve your own pumpkin. Now, this may be a daunting task, as you might not want to, cut up an innocent pumpkin, but I can assure you that in the end, the bright jack-o'-lantern will be delightful for all the people coming over to your house on a Halloween night. Thank you, and good day.